Hello citizens and welcome back to the Starlancer Max Liveaboard series. This is episode 3 of a multi-part series where I use the Starlancer Max as my only ship to earn my way through the Star Citizen universe. My short-term goal is to earn enough AUEC to purchase a RSI Scorpius in-game, and I'm not allowed to cheat by spamming ERTs or by going back to my home city to refill on supplies. Anything I use has to be earned or bought with AUEC that will be deducted from my total at the end of each episode. In case you missed the first 2 episodes, you can check them out via the links in the description. All I ask is that you watch this episode in its totality so that I might please the algorithm of the YouTube overlords. While we're on the subject, according to YouTube, 85% of my viewers aren't subscribed yet, so do me a favor and hit that subscribe button if that pertains to you and you like watching Star Citizen content. We're still a fairly new channel at just over a month old and really appreciate it when you guys like, subscribe, and leave comments for me to respond to while I drink coffee in the morning. As it stands, our total AUEC earned is at 847,910 AUEC as of the end of last week's second installment of the series, which means we have a ways to go and hopefully we make it before the 4.0 wipe takes us back to 0. But without further delay, let's get into it. To start off today's adventures, I had some Quantanium that I had to drop off from last week's episode. I tend to save the Quantanium for when I need to go back to town or when I just happen to be in the area. And I happened to be around because I had an idea on a way to make some credits that I thought I could pull off without too much hassle. So after I offloaded my Quantanium and some Terranite I happened to find during an ERT, bringing my days total to an early 142,550 AUEC, I sprinted back to my hangar and boarded the Starlancer Max. I stopped off at Bajini to pick up a few supplies, namely a Novikov exploration set and several 2 SCU boxes that set me back 47,800 credits. Then I headed to Lyria and stopped off at an outpost to spawn in a rock, because I was fairly certain that I could fit it in the hangar even with the Nursa still on board. It just so happens that I was correct, which just raised the value of the Starlancer in my books. After loading up, I immediately got to work and began scanning the planet's surface for unknown node signatures using my scanning ping. Bear in mind, I hadn't really done rock mining before, so I was prepared to do a bit of learning. It wasn't long before I found what looked like mineable nodes, so I landed and unloaded the rock in order to investigate further. Shortly after I deboarded in the rock, I was notified that a hostile enemy ship was spotted on the horizon by the rock's sensors. They were pretty far out, but not wanting to tempt fate, I loaded the vehicle back on board and took flight to deal with the threat. The opposition turned out to be a Mustang and a 300 series fighter, which proved to be no match for the Starlancer's size 4 guns. After dealing with the issue, I started searching again for some mineral nodes to mine. I quickly found some dolomite and got to work using the rock's mining laser. After breaking up the nodes, I started gathering the valuables by hand, only to remember that the rock had a collection beam attachment. Once I collected my quarry, I headed off again in search of something, hopefully a bit more valuable. As luck would have it, the very next collection of nodes turned out to be hadenite. And though I'm not an experienced miner, I was previously made aware by some org mates that this is really the only material worth mining using a rock. So I set to work on all of the mineral deposits, taking special care not to overload any of the nodes. The entire process went admittedly rather smoothly, except for the fact that the collection beam isn't what you would call efficient. Though better than the handheld multi-tool, I found that you had to be exceptionally precise with where you aim the beam in order to collect anything, which is easier said than done considering the items you're trying to collect aren't even really visible from anything over a few feet away. About the 2-hour mark, I was satisfied with my haul and began transferring everything I had collected into one of the 2 SCU boxes. Needless to say, bringing 3 boxes was a bit ambitious, but it never hurts to have backups because this is Star Citizen after all. After loading up, I made my way back to Area 18 to see if the fruits of my labor was worth the 2 hours I spent mining. Once landed, I moved my haul to the freight elevator and sent it down to the warehouse to be stored. Then I made my way back to the TDD to sell everything. Unfortunately, my inexperience turned out to be a bit of a hard lesson as I only collected 82,775 credits worth of gems and minerals. If we subtract the gear and material investment, my net profit was only 34,975 AUEC. Hardly worth spending 2 hours planetside. But at least the investment could be used more than once if I wanted to go mining again. But after a long morning of passive gameplay, I was looking for some danger. So I made my way back to Lyria and set course for Teddy's Playhouse. Now I don't know about you, but recently bunker turrets have felt a little bit overtuned since they fixed the attritions. I'm not sure if this is because the server FPS is higher, but I feel like they pose a greater threat than what I remember them being. So I approached the bunker carefully, paying attention to position myself outside of the bunker turret's max range. With a little bit of finagling, I was able to down the bunker's main turret, after which point I moved on to the other 3 that dotted the perimeter of the bunker. After dealing with that threat, I moved in a little bit closer to hopefully take out some of the ground forces patrolling on the outside. Once that was handled, I landed and started moving one of my empty storage boxes to the main building, making sure to take care of any other threats I found along the way. I was pretty low on ammo to begin with, so I made sure to stock up by looting any bodies on the way in. Once my box and I were inside, I lowered the elevator to sub-level 1 and got ready for the fight. My plan was simple: make the enemies come to me through the funnel created by the barriers placed around the entryway. I would use the concealment of the corner and half walls to pick them off one by one, and use my tractor beam to move bodies and loot closer to me. Once I had sufficiently large pile of bodies, I began the looting process, starting with the guns and the ammo. In the middle of looting, I did hear gunshots coming from the surface, but I went up to make sure that my ship wasn't being destroyed. Once that issue was dealt with, I got back to looting, now moving on to the many armor sets that littered the floor of the bunker entryway. This is admittedly a slow process and is made easier with the friend, as you always run the risk of respawns happening while you're standing there naked inside the inventory of a box. But once I had several sets inside my box, I made my way back to the surface. After loading the Starlancer, I began the flight off planet. At this point in time, it was getting pretty late in the play session and I still hadn't made a significant amount of progress towards my goal. So I made my way to Yella in the hopes of finding an ERT in the asteroid belt. I'm not sure if I'm just lucky, but I got one right away, and I promptly made my way to the target's last known position. At this point, my confidence level when using the Starlancer and ERTs is pretty high, so I charged in, guns blazing, and quickly started taking out the contract targets. Generally speaking, I like to save Starlifters and Starfarers as my last targets, as they tend to carry some of the most valuable cargo, and it can be really easy to lose soft-killed targets in the asteroid field if you wander too far away from them. Once I finished taking everything out, I started moving cargo boxes from their ships to mine, and I was lucky to find a decent load of weevil eggs and Altrusia toxin, which would help make up for my lackluster day so far. I had to stop off for a restock and resupply, which ended up costing me 1,227 credits. The common rays were down around Daymar, so not wanting to risk it, I decided to go to Walla to sell my hard-earned cargo at Samson & Son Salvage Center. Once I arrived, I quickly loaded my cargo onto the freight elevator and lowered it down to the warehouse. Then I went into the terminal to sell. The Altrusia toxin I brought in yielded 146,200 credits, while the weevil eggs brought in a total of 787,500 credits, by far eclipsing everything I had done for the day to that point. At this time, I was about 4 hours into the play session, so it was time to call it a day. And since we're coming to a close, let's go ahead and tally everything up. In total, I brought in 1,159,025 AUEC, but if we subtract my expenses, totaling to be 49,027, our net total for the day becomes 1,109,998 AUEC. Adding it to our running total from previous days puts us at 1,957,908 credits for the challenge overall, or roughly 37.5% of the way towards our goal of buying the RSI Scorpius. Before you go, please do remember to like and subscribe if you appreciate the video, and leave me a comment with what ship you would like to see used in a liveaboard challenge. Any subscribers who comment and like a video I published during the month of December will automatically be entered to win a ship that I'm giving away on Christmas Eve. In regards to the liveaboard challenge, we're still not done at this point, and we're going to have to pull off something drastic if we're going to make it before the 4.0 deadline. As it stands, it looks like Wave 4 of tests have hit the EPTU, so CIG may, in fact, be forcing 4.0 before they take their winter holiday. Also, I'd like to remind you to keep an eye out for a ship review I'm publishing this Saturday. I'll be borrowing a Scorpius from one of my friends since I've never actually used the ship and I'm curious if it's actually worth buying at all. With that said, I think I'll end the video here. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the verse.